How is it going, everyone? This is Christina, and today I wanted to go over some of the toolings that I use currently for developing my Camel application. Please take this with a grain of salt because these are strictly my own opinions and the things I like to use for developing my own Camel applications and also everything around the Camel. So you might find something that you prefer, and I love to hear your feedback, and it would be good if you can leave a message or leave a comment down below so that people can get an idea of what your favorite thing is when developing Camel. So let's go ahead and go to the IDE. Well, of course we all need IDEs because we cannot just write from a VI or just write it on a plain text editor because that's just going to be very harsh, and obviously I cannot remember everything, so it would be good to have some kind of help. So VS Code is currently, or Visual Code Studio is currently my go-to IDE for developing Camel because all the new extension that's available for to help with my new Camel development. So that's why I kind of Visual Studio Code is kind of my go-to nowadays. Go-to extension you must have for developing Camel it's called Extension Pack for Apache Camel by Red Hat. It comes with almost everything you need for creating a Camel project. It starts from a project initializer where if you want to start creating your Camel project from scratch, it kind of gives you that base structure of what your Camel project would look like. Or you can also go into the Quarkus start coding page. That's one of the other things I use. But one thing to look out for, the Quarkus page doesn't give you all the classes that you need to write Camel route. So you basically have to do it yourself. But it's all up to you, depending on what runtime you're running. So for instance, if you're doing Camel K, then obviously you don't have to go to the Camel Quarkus, and the basic structure is basically a blank canvas, so you can basically write everything what you want for it. And then let's move on to writing the Camel DSL, right? So everybody will have to write Camel DSL somehow, and my current favorite is writing in Java. I used to write a lot in XML, but now since we are going into another era now, YAML and Java seems to be the supported version by Red Hat, so you will be able to see all the auto completions and validations of your Camel code, so you don't have to see any compiler error. It just validates it for you while you're developing it. I'm sticking to my old habits Java right now, but I might switch to YAML someday because it just look cooler. But whatever you wanted to do. Another cool toolings that I have to mention is the mapping tools, because a lot of times when you're developing a integration project, you need to have some kind of mapping between two different data sources, and sometimes doing that mapping in code is kind of tedious and it's not the easiest thing to do. So that's why there's a tool that comes with the whole integration package. It's called AtlasMap, and if you don't want to install the whole package, you can just install that independently by yourself. So once you install the tools, it gives you like a very nice GUI interface where you can import your data source to different data source and then do the mapping in between. And it's after you do the drag and drop mapping using the tools, it's going to generate a file, an ADM file. And then what you can do is you can use this ADM file. So this is a single file that defines how to map from one data source to another. And you can use the Camel AtlasMap component, which understands the ADM file, and it's going to do the transformation for you in the Camel route. That's like the transformation tool that you have to know. For me, that's helped me a lot during my development. Another common things that you do when you're developing a Camel route is creating an API. An API endpoint is obviously very popular if you wanted to create endpoint for your external users. So one of the tools, I think you've seen me doing this for like a million project, is called Apicurio. So it doesn't come with the extension toolings. You have to go and install it yourself. You can either go to their community website where they will let you use it, or where you can use it for free and you can always test it, or you can spin it on your Kubernetes environment. It's just a simple Docker image where it's a tool that you create your API contract basically. So you will be able to define in a GUI interface way. Again, it's very nice to see how it's done, and it's very easy to see what your API looks like. and then you will be able to do your API contract first development. And I also wanted to give a shout out to a very nice tooling by Bruno. And this tooling is very nice. It's still in the development phase, so it's not perfect, but it's a very good visualization tool to see what your camel route looks like. If you're first learning camel routes, it just gives you a quick glance of what's the structure of how your camel routes will run. And you can also do some drag and drop stuff. Although I still like to code myself, but if you're one of these people that wants to do drag and drop, this is a tool that can help you. Okay, so next up is testing. So it's still a good practice for integration developer to do testing. I would just use the old-fashioned JUnit. It comes with a Camel testing component where you can create your Camel test case inside a Camel class, and then inside that Camel class, you will be able to mock your endpoints or load your data sets, or even stop out the endpoints if you don't want to actually contact that particular endpoint. But with integration, testing is not that easy. And one of the other ways I like to do is do behavior-driven testing. It's more like a black box testing where you're mimicking the nature of what the user's input is and then what their expectation is, right? So as an integration developer, I find this a lot more useful because that's easier for me to have my testing team doing the testing for me, because now they can go off and writing all the behavior cases. And one of the tools that I really like when it comes to behavior-driven testing is the Citrus testing framework. It's based on Cucumber, I remember. So basically, you can use a very easy description to describe a particular scenario where you can give a certain criteria, and then you can say when a certain condition meets, then something happens in the structure of easy to read, understandable feature file. So I really like the way that it does testing, because oftentimes doing white box testing, because I know what the outcomes will be, I often miss a lot of things. So having that black box testing and being able to test multiple routes at the same time would help me tremendously. Another very cool testing framework that I wanted to give a shout out to the Citrus team is the new Yaks. So this one is very special because before I have to still do the Maven build and then do the Maven testing during my build and all that, right? And deploying that is kind of complex. And then having that running on a container environment means that I have to also deploy my testing code to test that if I wanted to have that running in my testing stage. And sometimes the criteria changes, so I have to have multiple versions of it running. But this project, Yaks, kind of solves a lot of my problem, because it will create a container or create a pod itself independent from your Camel routes or from your Camel application, and it's going to do the testing for you. It has its own operator to take care of its lifecycle. So all the user have to do is define the feature file that we've just talked about, and it's going to create that test scenario to test every single one of your Camel routes or the one that you wanted to test it in. It's going to give you a result of the test, right? So it's very nice, and I think I found it very, very useful when I have pipeline established for many of my environments. So I will be able to establish different behaviors running in different containers. I can even test them simultaneously, right? So that was a very cool. I want to give a shout out to this team. This is very nice work. Another thing that then it's the platform that they're running on. So of course you can run Camel as a standalone Uber jar or Spring Boot, or you can run it as a standalone jar, simple application, or you can run it in an application service, right? Like a JBoss or WebLogic, but that's kind of yesterday now, right? So everybody wants to run their application standalone, microservices, and in a container, right? So currently my most used platform is the OpenShift platform, which is another type of Kubernetes orchestration platform to run my instance. The reason why I like it is because, first of all, managing hundreds of Camel routes is not fun, right? And handling the scaling and the resource and configurations, the ID passwords and in different staging environment, it's just a lot of work. I prefer to have a platform, and I think you can find like a lot of content regarding to OpenShift or Kubernetes and how that can help you with container orchestrations and how to manage your container and running on the cloud environment. So I won't dive deep into that because I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere. And then let's talk about the CICD. So maybe like 6 months ago, I would be using Jenkins because I've been using it for many years. It's just easy for me. And there's plugins for OpenShift, and there's plugins for Kubernetes, and there's plugins for Maven. So I was able to use this to create steps for my CICD pipelines, to build my applications and to deploy my Camel application. So that's kind of like the ones I was using. But for the last couple of months, I've been using Tekton pipelines. First of all, because I've seen a lot of people moving to Tekton pipeline, because you can now use Kubernetes itself as the CI/CD pipeline platform without managing another application to run your pipeline. So I was trying it out and I found it's pretty good, especially with now they have Tekton Hub. It provides a lot of predefined tasks for you, so you don't have to do it. So I kind of just been switching to that, and I'm gonna do a deeper dive into this topic in the future. So look out for my content. And last but not least is the monitoring. So in Camel 3, everything has switched to micro-profile metrics. So you will need to add that micro-profile metrics dependencies into your projects in order for Camel to start collecting all these and export it out. And after that, I will then start up a Prometheus. So Prometheus will then be scraping all these metrics on the platform. So you do have to define where to look for it in your OpenShift environment, or you have to define it in your Prometheus. And then it's going to collect all these metrics and then store itself. And in order to have a better display of how things are going, normally I would use Grafana. Grafana itself allows you to display and create dashboards by the metrics provided. So that's kind of like a quick overview of what I'm using today as in 2021. The toolings that I use for Camel, and I hope you find this enjoyable and informative. Please tell me, like, what do you use today for developing your Camel application, and I would love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.